I was assigned a dorm room during my second year of college. It wasn't the newest building, but it was cheap, and I didn't mind. My roommate Ryan was pretty chill. He spent most of his time at his girlfriend's place, so I had the room to myself for most of the semester. About a month in, Ryan texted me saying he was moving out to officially live off campus. I wasn't surprised, but what did catch me off guard was an email I got the next day, an automated message from the housing office confirming I'd be getting a new roommate. The email didn't have much detail, just a name, Nathan Moore. The weird thing, when I asked around, nobody had ever heard of him. Nathan showed up that Friday. He was quiet, with dark hair that looked like it hadn't been washed in a while. He didn't have much with him, just a duffel bag and a backpack. "Hey," I greeted, trying to be friendly. "I'm Alex." He nodded but didn't say much. He unpacked a few things, a toothbrush, some clothes, but his side of the room stayed mostly empty. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Nathan shifting in his bed, whispering to himself. The next morning I asked him if everything was okay. "I don't sleep well," he muttered. After that, things got strange. Nathan never left the room, not for meals, classes, or anything. His bed stayed perfectly made, but I'd wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of soft footsteps pacing back and forth. When I turned on the light, he'd be standing by the window, staring out into the dark. One night, I had enough. "Dude, are you okay?" I asked. Nathan turned slowly, his eyes hollow. "I don't like being alone." I was getting seriously freaked out. The next day, I went to the housing office to ask if I could switch dorms. The receptionist looked confused when I explained my situation. "You said your roommate's name is Nathan Moore?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. Her face went pale. There's no Nathan Moore in our system." I stared at her, stunned. "What do you mean? He moved in last week." She didn't know what to say. I felt sick. I rushed back to my room, but when I opened the door, it was empty. Nathan's bed was gone, his duffel bag, his toothbrush, everything. I told myself it was a prank, that I'd hallucinated everything. But later that night, I woke up to the sound of footsteps again, and when I looked toward the window, Nathan was there, staring back at me. It was my first semester living in the dorms. I was excited at first, new experiences, new people. But by the second week, the novelty had worn off. My dorm was old, the walls were paper thin, and privacy didn't exist. I'd hear everything, doors slamming, people arguing, even the guy in the room next to mine snoring every night. One night, around 11 p.m., I was finishing up some homework when I noticed a soft tapping sound. At first, I thought it was someone messing around in the hallway, but it didn't stop. The sound was steady, deliberate. I got up and looked through the peephole. Nothing. The hallway was empty. I shrugged it off and sat back down. A few minutes later, it was louder this time. My heart started to race. I opened the door, expecting to catch someone mid-prank, but the hallway was still empty. I checked both ends. No one. I closed the door, locked it, and tried to focus, telling myself it was probably someone being stupid. About an hour later, I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I heard it again. But this time it wasn't coming from the door. It was coming from my window. I froze. I lived on the third floor. Slowly, I turned my head toward the window. The blinds were closed, but I could see the faint shadow of something or someone standing there. My blood went cold. I grabbed my phone and dialed the campus security's number with shaking fingers. "Hey," I whispered. "There's someone outside my window." There was silence on the other end. Then, finally, "Alex, you're on the third floor. No one can be outside your window." I hung up and forced myself to pull the blinds back. My hands were trembling. I held my breath as the slats shifted. There was nothing there, just the dark. I tried to sleep after that, but every sound made me jump. I finally passed out around 3 a.m., heart still pounding. The next morning, I convinced myself I'd imagined it all, until I saw the faint smudge of a handprint on the glass. I reported it to campus security. They didn't seem too concerned, but they said they'd send someone to check it out. That night, I locked my door and double-checked the window. Just as I was starting to calm down, there was a knock. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. It was campus security. Relieved, I opened the door. The officer looked grim. "You're Alex, right?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. He glanced down the hallway, then back at me. "We found something you should know about." My stomach twisted. "What?" He hesitated, then said, "There's a service door at the end of your hall. It leads to a maintenance ladder that reaches all the way to the third-floor windows." I felt sick. He continued, "There were scuff marks on the ladder, like someone had been climbing it. And we found cigarette butts near the base. We cannot say for sure, but it is possible that someone was watching you, and you should report this to the police." I reported it to the police, but they never caught the guy. I was left no choice but to move to a different dorm building. I never felt safe in that room again. And sometimes, when I walk past that old dorm late at night, I swear I can still hear it. It happened during midterms week. I was exhausted, pulling all-nighters and surviving on instant noodles and caffeine. My dorm floor was usually loud, but that week it was dead silent. Everyone was either studying or passed out from stress. It was around 2:30 a.m. when I finally decided to call it a night. I shut off my desk lamp and crawled into bed. Just as I was drifting off, I heard it. The unmistakable sound of a door handle turning. At first, I thought it was someone from another room going to the bathroom, but then I realized the sound came from my door. I froze, heart pounding. I watched as the handle slowly jiggled. Someone was trying to open it. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice shaking. The jiggling stopped. Silence. I grabbed my phone and checked the time, 2:34 a.m. I texted my roommate, who was staying at her boyfriend's place. "Are you messing with me?" No response. I stared at the door, barely breathing. After a few minutes, I convinced myself it was nothing. A drunk student at the wrong room. I rolled over and closed my eyes. Then came the knock. It was slow, deliberate. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. The knock came again. And then a voice. "Let me in." It was barely above a whisper, hoarse and cold. I felt my entire body go numb. "Who is it?" I asked, trying to sound brave. Silence. "Forgot to lock the bathroom door." My stomach dropped. My dorm suite shared a bathroom with the room next door. There was a second door in my room, leading straight into the bathroom. I turned, heart racing, and stared at that door. It was open. Not wide, just a crack. But I knew for a fact that I had closed it before going to bed. I bolted out of bed and slammed it shut, twisting the lock as hard as I could. I pressed my ear to the door, listening, but there was nothing on the other side. I called campus security. When they arrived, they checked the suite next door and found it empty. My neighbors were out of town for the week. The officer looked at me seriously and said, "Are you sure you locked your door before bed?" I nodded. He sighed. "There have been a few reports this week of someone sneaking into unlocked dorms at night." That sent a chill down my spine. After they left, I triple-checked both doors and didn't sleep a second that night. I found out later they caught the guy a few days later. He wasn't a student, just some random drifter who'd been wandering campus at night, looking for open doors. I still don't know how long he stood in the dark, watching me before I woke up. When I moved into my dorm, I didn't think much about the room number, 213. Just another old room in an old building. The first few nights were fine, but after about a week, I started noticing strange things. It began with small noises, soft knocks on the wall, quiet enough that I thought I was imagining them. But then, the whispers started. Late at night, when everything was still, I'd hear them. Faint, hushed voices like someone was having a conversation inside the walls. I tried telling myself it was just pipes or maybe sound bleeding from another room. But one night, I heard my name, clear as day. "George." I shot up in bed, heart pounding. The room was silent again, but I swore I wasn't dreaming. The next morning, I mentioned it to my RA. She gave me this weird look and said, "You didn't know? Room 213. That's where a student passed away 3 years ago." I felt a chill run down my spine. She continued, "They said he was lonely. His roommate moved out, and no one knew anything was wrong until it was too late. That night, I lay in bed, trying to shake the story. But just as I started to drift off, I felt it, something brushing across my blanket. I froze, and then I heard it again.
George.
I didn't sleep after that. By the end of the semester, I moved out early. I told myself I was imagining things, that stress and lack of sleep had gotten to me. But on my last night there, as I locked the door for the final time, I heard it, a soft whisper right behind me.
Please don't leave.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next scary story. Drop a comment with what you want to see next. Stay safe out there.